The Open Public Meeting Law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcasted by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. If there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please identify yourself now. Okay. All right, so we'll get started with the first agenda item. Item number 1, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the October 17th, 2019 meeting. Motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. I'm going to read the next 4 or 5 items all together, and then we'll take one vote. Request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December...
Madam Chair, we should be doing EDIC first.
Yes, we should be doing that. Should, yeah. So, do I do the minutes again, or? Well, no, it was the same.
I would just
Let's just do it again.
reopen.
Yes. We're on the EDIC agenda. So the first item is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the October 17th, 2019 meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, so item number 2, development. Request authorization to extend the tentative designation of Thompson Island Outward Bound Education Center Incorporated as redeveloper for the redevelopment and long-term lease of EDIC Berth 10 dock and the adjacent water sheet located in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, and to enter into a license agreement with said redeveloper.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I'm requesting that the board please extend the tentative designation status of Thompson Island Outward Bound Education Center for the EDIC Berth 10 dock and adjacent water sheet, and also to vote to authorize the execution of a license agreement with them for the interim use of the property. We're requesting an extension of 6 months. The leased premises consist of a section of dock, berthing area, security gate, and adjacent water sheet of approximately 5,100 square feet, including a float and gangway. As you probably recall, this organization was tentatively designated at the January 2019 board. Thompson Island Educational Outward Bound Center is a 501c3 nonprofit educational corporation and conservator of Thompson Island and the Boston Harbor Islands. They currently operate a water ferry service from the leased premises to transport over 2,500 Boston area school students to Thompson Island through partnerships for educational programs. They also operate revenue-generating programs and activities on Thompson Island, including weddings, corporate events and functions, and team-building retreats. They propose to redevelop the leased premises with significant improvements to the existing ramp and float system that will allow for expansion of their programming. Since the January tentative designation, staff has been in negotiations with Thompson Island OBEC senior management regarding monthly rent payments and design approvals for the ramp and float system. Part of the delay is that the organization experienced a catastrophic infrastructure issue on Thompson Island, which caused them to divert cash flow to perform this needed repair. Negotiations between Thompson Island Educational Center and BPDA staff are continuing regarding the interim license agreement, payments, and the term of the long-term lease. Today's extension, if voted, will allow negotiations to continue in a way that ensures that the assets in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park are managed appropriately while also remaining mindful of the long-term need to redevelop this property. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3, request authorization to approve the assignment to lease the Adcatron EMS Incorporated to East West Boston LCC for use of 45,001 square feet of space located in the 12 Channel Street, Suites 201 and 301 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you. A company called Advanced Electronics was founded in 1972 and had been a tenant at 12 Channel Street since 1993. They were a computer circuit board manufacturer. Citing drastic loss of business, the board of directors of Advanced Electronics voted to terminate the company in 2005. A group of 6 senior managers from Advanced Electronics purchased the company in October of 2005 and formed a new company called Adgatron EMS. Adgatron has been a steady tenant at 12 Channel Street since 2005 and has increased employment from 5 employees at its inception to the current 85 employees. They still make computer hardware, but also are involved in other electromechanical manufacturing for a broad range of industries, including medical, military, industrial, telecommunications, and alternative energy. Adgatron has recently informed BPDA that it intends to sell substantially all of its assets to East West Manufacturing, which will rebrand as East West Boston after this assignment, should you be so gracious. East West Boston is a high-volume contract manufacturing company based in Atlanta, Georgia, with manufacturing or sales offices in California, Georgia, and North Carolina, as well as the countries of India, Vietnam, England, Costa Rica, China, and Israel. It's anticipated that East West Boston's access to these international markets will result in an increase in blue-collar job creation at 12 Channel Street. The purchase of Adgatron's assets is conditioned upon the assignment of the 12 Channel Street lease from Adgatron to East West Boston. Obviously, we're here to recommend approval of that assignment, but before that, I want to point out to the board that the current owner of Adgatron will remain as general manager at the 12 Channel Street facility and will continue to be BPDA's main point of contact. And all 85 current managers and employees will retain their salaries and their positions, as well as the current benefits they enjoy, including health care, retirement plan, and vacation.
Any questions from the board?
Are there any issues here with technology transfer to the Far East?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, request authorization to execute a lease with RBK2 Tenant LLC for use of 3,373 square feet of space located at 22 Dry Dock Avenue, Suite 202, within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the board. RBK2 Tenant LLC is an affiliate of Related Beal, who was previously awarded the rights to develop Parcel K, also at 6 Tide Street in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. There were 2 phases to the redevelopment project, and RBK is close to completion of Phase 1, which is an approximately 125,000 square foot building that will be used for research and development. The project is now known as Innovation Square, or ISQ. RBK2 recently began the groundwork to start Phase 2 of this project, which will consist of a single building of approximately 250,000 square feet that will also be used for research and development. The project is directly across Northern Ave from BPD-owned office space at 22 Dry Dock Ave. RBK2 previously approached the BPDA in order to lease space within close proximity to the project at ISQ, where they can oversee construction on a daily basis. Suite 202 at 22 Dry Dock is the former BPDA model shop. It's a rundown and raw space that needs improvements to become more usable and marketable. The space is heated but does not have air conditioning. The windows are older and the floors are original and need repair. RBK2 intends to invest about approximately $50,000 to build out this space using standard partition walls and demountable wall system in order to create office and conference room space as well as common area. They will also add lighting, electrical outlets, and possibly a kitchenette. At the expiration of the lease term, RBK2 will remove the furniture and equipment and leave the fixtures and improvements to the benefit of the BPDA. RBK2 has agreed to pay $23 per square foot for the entire 3,373 square foot space. The market rate for this is the market rate for similar spaces that need improvement. BPDA will receive approximately $155,000 over the 2-year term. Time being of the essence, RBK2 was permitted early access to Suite 202 to commence setup at their own risk, subject to BPDA approval. Thus, the lease will have a retroactive effective date of October 18th, 2019, and will expire on October 31st, 2021.
Does the board have any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, request authorization to accept $50,000 from Living Cities for consultant services for a buying plan, and to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the City of Boston of Economic Development to document how the BPDA and the city will jointly expend said grant.
Good
Michelle.
afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. I am Michelle Goldberg, the Budget Director for the BPDA. I am here this afternoon seeking an approval to accept a $50,000 grant from Living Cities, Inc. With that, we're also seeking approval to establish a memorandum of agreement, or MOA, with the Office of Economic Development to jointly expend that grant. Usually I'm before you seeking approval for the annual budget and providing budget updates. My side gig here at the BPDA is serving as a managing procurement officer. So I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to share with you the context of this request and the amazing work that's going on around this grant. There are 3 core activities happening right now that help explain why we are receiving this grant and what we hope to do with it. The BPDA's internal procurement efforts and overall mission, the city's disparity study, and the mayor's executive order to support equitable procurement processes. Since my arrival in 2016, I have helped the BPDA re-examine how the finance department supports and administers procurement practices throughout the agency. We have made great strides in this area, though it is slow and sometimes painful. We are seeing more bidders. We have new business partners, and we are having rich conversations with our bidders and our vendors. The truth is, if you want vendor diversity, you have to get public procurement right first. With the EDIC being under the BPDA's umbrella, the notion of orienting our work towards economic development is in everything we do. We must go beyond the basics of public procurement and ask the question, how can we make sure our buying power has impact? And it's clear the EDIC needs and wants to lead in this work when it comes to inclusive procurement. The city is asking the same question. We have known for years that there are clear-cut barriers to doing business with government entities. Some of those barriers come from the state and are valuable in protecting the public dollar from abuse. At the same time, some of those barriers are of our own creation or are out of date, which results in less people having access to business opportunities with the government. In the case of Boston, we're talking about an almost billion-dollar marketplace when you put all of the public entities together. This is an age-old problem that has troubled the public sector for a very long time. The city has done disparity studies in the past and is currently engaged in a study that includes all the quasi-agencies, so that's the BPDA, Boston Water and Sewer, and the Boston Housing Authority. By participating, the BPDA will get insights into these barriers and help determine what programs we need in place to expand access and opportunity. To be clear, we will get BPDA-specific results and BPDA-specific recommendations in addition to whatever we learn from the larger study. The hope is that this time around, the disparity study will be conclusive and provide us with a foundation for compelling advocacy for regulatory change. In the absence, though, of a successful disparity study and any resulting regulatory change, we need to look inward and work on whatever barriers are under our control, which is what brings this conversation back to general public procurement and the Living Cities grant. There's a bit of a renaissance going on in the procurement world. In both the private and public sector, organizations are realizing that there's a great opportunity here, and we indeed can have a strategic impact if we are mindful and intentional with our procurement practices. Everywhere I go in the professional network, people are talking about procurement and its socioeconomic impact, which is really weird, but we're going to go with it. This is where Living Cities comes in. Thanks to the efforts of our colleagues, Laura Melly with the BPDA and Cherise Hearns with OED, we get to participate in this fantastic program jointly with the city. Living Cities is a philanthropic organization which is mainly funded by the City Foundation. They have convened practitioners from 10 cities across the country to participate in an inclusive procurement accelerator program that is examining the same questions we're asking. Basically, their operating theory is if local governments have an extraordinary buying power and we are doing all of these things to improve life in the communities that we serve, how can we make sure that our procurement practices support the effort to expand economic development in disadvantaged communities? Participating in this cohort has been profoundly beneficial for this organization, for the city, and for me professionally. Boston is not the only municipality asking these questions and seeking solutions. Through Living Cities, we have met some of the most talented public servants in the country that are out there conducting disparity studies, hosting engagement events, pressing against their internal bureaucracies, leveraging technology, and swimming in paperwork, trying to find a way to ensure that their jurisdictions are practicing what they preach and spending their dollars strategically in their communities. We believe that the Living Cities grant will be a powerful ingredient in this work. Just this past Friday, Mayor Walsh signed what I would argue is a groundbreaking executive order to support equitable procurement. It goes into great detail outlining exactly what the expectations are, who is responsible for ensuring that this work happens, and an aggressive but reasonable timeline for implementing training and resources so that all stakeholders have what they need to execute on this work. We collaborated with the city as they prepared this executive order, and we are thrilled to now reflect on how the BPDA can adapt and adopt and implement this order into our own operations. I anticipate we will be back next month to present our plan to adopt this executive order, and we're looking forward to talking about that with everyone. In the meantime, holding this grant will allow us to work with the city to complement these efforts with additional resources. Prior to the executive order, we believed we should hire a consultant to help us compile the data and publish a centralized buying plan. Well, that's now happening inside the budget process. A majority of the city staff and BPDA staff will be able to get the buying plan off the ground. So now we're going to work with Living Cities and folks in City Hall to figure out what's the next best option to make sure that this $50,000 grant really does accelerate inclusive procurement. With that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board?
I'm just thrilled this is happening and look forward to getting an update after it's
Thank you.
carried out.
I'll echo my colleagues being thrilled, and I guess I'm expecting that when you present again next month, we'll see, if not necessarily the details of what the interventions may be, but at least some metrics that get us beyond where we are at this moment. There have been a lot of studies, and
Indeed.
We need some breakthroughs at this point that demonstrate that we can actually deliver on different procurement practices. So you should expect that next month I want to see some specificity.
Thank you. Yes, we'll be sure to work on that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Great job, Michelle. Okay, item number 6. Request authorization to execute any and all necessary documents to subscribe to Office 365 for 3 years in an amount not to exceed $103,077. Michael.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board. I will be brief. The BPDA is currently using Microsoft Office 2013. The IT department, we'd like to move to Office 365. It is a subscription, cloud-based service version of Microsoft Office that will allow the BPDA to collaborate in real time, anytime, anywhere, much in the same way that we do with Google.
Okay, great. Any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7, request authorization to enter into a contract with McKay Construction Services Incorporated for snow clearance, plowing, snow removal, and salting sanding services within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for a one-year contract with 2 one-year options in an amount not to exceed $250,000. John.
Good evening, Vice Chairman, members of the board. On August 15, 2019, the board authorized to advertise a request to bid for work at the snow removal for the Marine Industrial Park. On October 21st of this year, BPDA received 1 bid from McKay Construction, and so we'd like to request the board to authorize McKay to be the snow removal contract for this year and the 2 option years as well.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, request authorization to execute an engineering service contract with STV Incorporated in connection with mobility improvements and streetscape design at Northern Avenue and Tide Street, located in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, in an amount not to exceed $229,251.67. Paul?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Secretary Polimus. This is a request for authorization to execute an engineering service contract with STV Incorporated for the project Mobility Improvements and Streetscape Design on Northern Ave and Tide Street in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. With the heavy truck traffic in the park, this project will provide a protected bike lane to help reduce potential bike safety issues with truck traffic. This investment for dedicated bike lanes will assist in encouraging sustainable modes of transportation and reducing possible conflicts. The design shall include the following for the Northern Ave and Tide Street areas. Conduct a complete topographical survey, which will serve as the baseline for all the construction improvement drawings. It'll be the development of preliminary design, design development, and the final drawings and detailed cost estimates suitable for public bidding. It will also include bidding assistance during the course of time when we're actually going out to bid, soliciting for a general contractor. And resident engineering services and construction administration would also be part of that as well. The description of the project is to bring all sidewalks up to ADA standards, construct a 7-foot wide sidewalk and a 4-foot separated bike lane on each side of Northern Avenue and one on Tide Street. Reset curbing, upgrade, and replace regulatory signage, add streetscape improvements, including landscaping, and 32 City of Boston energy-efficient streetlights. We'll be demolishing an abandoned front entrance security building on Northern Avenue that's currently unoccupied and not needed at this time. And the consultant will be providing PIC plans for Northern Avenue and Tide Street for future transfer to the City of Boston. BPDA requested design service from qualified consultants on October 2nd, 2019 through the BPDA RFP process. An outreach to MBE, WB firms was part of our overall solicitation. Pre-proposal meeting was conducted on October 15th. 4 firms submitted proposals to the BPDA on October 25th, and they were HDR Incorporated, STV Incorporated, which included Brennan Consulting Incorporated as their survey. They're a WBE firm. Howard Stein Hudson and McMahon Associates. And I've worked with all these 4 firms in the past, so I'm familiar with them. The Design and Selection Committee was assembled for the review of each proposal based on qualifications, project experience, and reasonable design fees. And based upon the review, the committee unanimously recommends that the engineering design contract be awarded to STV Incorporated, Boston, Massachusetts. Funding for the design contract is included in the City of Boston fiscal year 20 capital budget, and their fee was $229,251.67.
Okay.
So, if there are any questions related to that, I'd be glad to answer those at this time.
Paul, why do you think the bids were so far apart from each other?
Well, the only one that was really crazy was HDR, which I was totally surprised. My only guess is that they didn't really do a lot of homework, whereas I saw that the other ones did. I'm not even sure if they even came to our pre-proposal meeting, but it's way off and out of space, in my opinion. And the other ones were relatively close. STV, I know of them. I know the project manager, and I know some of the other upper management staff, and I believe that they were the right firm. So
Great.
we're anxious to get started.
Thanks for your candor on that.
You're welcome.
Are you comfortable that there's enough money in this so that the women-owned firm will not be put at risk?
I have no reason to believe there's anybody at risk at this point, no. The WB, they're a survey company, and actually we've been in discussion with them already, and actually they're doing their homework to get their familiarity, because when you want to do a topo survey, you want to do it out there when there's no snow. So we're doing that proactive approach now so that we can get the topo done, and then that way there, that's the baseline for all your construction drawings thereafter. So I'm very comfortable.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, motion
Thank you,
passes.
everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 9, personnel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda for appointments. with details in your board package. Edward Carmody, institutional planner and project manager in the Development Review Department with a start date of November 18th. Sharon Tolchinsky, lead financial coach, program manager in the Office of Financial Empowerment with a start date of December 2nd. Gisela Soriano, credit analyst in the Financial Services Department, start date December 2nd. Nisha McDonald, planning assistant in the Downtown and Neighborhood Planning Department, start date December 9th. We have one employment service contractor for your consideration with details in the memo. Michael Andelman, Bank on Boston Fellow in the Office of Financial Empowerment. One status change for your consideration with details in the memo, in the board memo. Samantha Maderos, Junior Finance Coordinator in the Budget and Finance Department. One travel item for your consideration. Alan Gentle, Roxbury Resource Center Manager from the Office of Workforce Development. And lastly, 3 departures. Nathaniel Smith, Chief Archivist. Robert Wong, Credit Analyst. And Olivia Barros, Assistant to the Director of Planning.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we don't vote on that, right?
You need to adjourn.
We don't vote on that one though, right?
Accept.
Right, okay, thank
Oh,
you.
no, I know,
Yeah,
you
we
do.
do.
We do vote on this? Okay,
Accept.
we accept?
You say in motion.
Oh, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Okay, moving on to the Boston Redevelopment Authority meeting. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves, and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcasted by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. If there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please identify yourself now. Is there anyone recording? Okay. So first item on the agenda, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the October 17th, 2019 meeting. The motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. I'm going to read the next agenda items all at once, and then we'll take one vote. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 12th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the First Amendment to the amended and restated master plan for 6 Stack Street within Planned Development Area Plan Number 51, Hood Park, Charlestown. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 12th, 2019 at 5:40 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the Second Amendment to the development plan for Harrison Commons and Harrison Court within Planned Development Area Number 59, located at 771 Harrison Avenue, the former Immaculate Conception in the South End. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 12th, 2019 at 5:50 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the amendment to the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 107 located at 235 Old Colony Avenue in South Boston. Item number 5, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development area master plan and 4 associated plans for Planned Development Area Number 127 located at 60 Everett Street in Alston, also known as Alston Yards. Item number 6, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on November 14th, 2019. That's
No,
not
it
right.
should be December
It should be
12th.
December, yeah. Request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 12th, 2019 at 6:10 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the Planned Development Area Number 126 Kenmore Square Hotel Project and to consider the Kenmore Square Hotel Project in Fenway as a development impact project. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Okay, so number 7, the Board of Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. 63 petitions have been prepared for transmittal to the Board of Appeal for their next 3 hearings. Two of them are still in November, next Tuesday and next Thursday night, and one in December, December 3rd. There have been no changes since the original list.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8, request authorization to amend the Downtown Planning Study Consultant Services Contract with NBBJ LP for an additional $150,000. Lauren.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. I'm here to present for your authorization a contract amendment in the amount of $150,000 for NBBJ, for the downtown planning study. As you may recall, in August of 2018, your board authorized that we begin work with NBBJ. We've since progressed rather well. We're anticipating still finishing the study next summer, but we do need some extra funds in order to complete the rest of the study. Primarily, at the time that we scoped out the project, we did not anticipate that our advisory group sessions would be as all-encompassing as they have been, and they've actually been going very well. So we just, we need a little bit more funding for that.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9, urban design update. Michael.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. I want to take an opportunity to introduce myself, Michael Canizzo, the Deputy Director for Urban Design, and then spend a few minutes of your time to introduce the staff that makes up the urban design team. I think I will be coming back to you in the future to sort of give you a sense of the projects that we've been approving, sort of the numbers, and hopefully to show you some examples of our work. So first I want to introduce, you basically are divided, or not divided, but we cover 4 general areas. The first area that we do is design review. So we perform all the design review for the, there should be a slide showing who's on our team. But these are the members of the team that spend most of their time reviewing all the projects, the Article 80 small and large projects that come before you on a monthly basis. The Zoning Board of Appeals often attaches a proviso to their approvals for BPDA design review, so they will review those. A number of our neighborhoods have neighborhood design overlay districts, which is a provision in the zoning that requires a BPDA design review for projects that do comply with zoning, but these are in areas that have been determined to have some special characteristics, whether historic or other items that it would be important to do design review. For example, Natalie is reviewing most of the signage that comes through us through comprehensive sign review. And then Jill, who I want to also say that is a recent Shattuck Award winner for this year, does all our comments for the Public Improvements Commission. So anything that goes before the commission, she would be reviewing. The next area that we take care of is the Boston Civic Design Commission. Elizabeth is the executive director, and she's ably helped out by both Colleen and Natalie. And you've seen a number of your projects, the large projects come through here, have gone through Civic Design Commission, and they're sort of what they're in charge to do is basically look at developments to make sure that the public realm works well with the city. They're a body of, I think, 9 members made up from BSA, Boston Society of Architects, real estate, so from a number of areas that have something to do with development. A third area that we spend time on is the design support team. This is a group that takes care of our wooden 3D model that I think many of you have seen. That's what Richard does. He's the lone person that keeps that looking good. Team Ming is responsible for our digital 3D model. It's online, so which is a very effective tool. I think we couldn't really function without someone like June, who does all the urban design studies that we use. So when we are reviewing projects, large and small, at times we will need to do some sort of a quick analysis to determine whether or not that's something that works well within the neighborhood. We also try to look at these in a greater context instead of just an individual project. So someone like June will begin to do a base map that begins to show the various projects that we've been reviewing or have been approved around. So those are very effective in our review process. And other things. In the last area that we've been taking on a lot the last few years are working with the planning department on the planning initiatives. We are co-lead to many of these planning studies. So I think it's helping us advise the planning team on urban design and being involved in that part. So we're a pretty busy group, a group of 14, a group that has basically spanned from over 20 years to within less than 2 years. So we have a good diversity of both talent and experience, and something I'm proud to be working with. So I'm willing to entertain any questions or if any suggestions which you would like me to come back in the future to report on. I'd be glad to take that. That's it.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Michael.
No, well,
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you and your team for the work that you do. We appreciate it. Okay. All right, so moving on to item number 10. Request authorization to amend the ground lease with CVPA Chain Forge LLC as tenant and redeveloper of Building 105, also known as the Chain Forge Building, located on a portion of parcel NY1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard, to allow additional time to close on construction and opportunity zone equity financing and to obtain building and other permits and approvals. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In December of 2017, BPDA and CVPA Chain Forge LLC, who I'll refer to as a developer going forward, executed a ground lease for the development of the Chain Forge building into a 230-room hotel. Under the terms and conditions of the lease, the developer would be in default of the lease in the event that they do not obtain both building permits and financing by a date certain. In September of 2019, the board authorized an extension of time to complete financing and obtain building permits through November 30th of 2019. One critical financing issue was remaining for resolution, which was utilization of a new federal Opportunity Zone program as a mechanism to access equity as opposed to conventional financing. I had previously spoken to the board about the frustration that the financing delay continued to bring us to require that we keep coming back and asking for an extension. However, to show the importance and seriousness of these requests, the developer agreed to pay to BPDA a non-refundable fee for the extension request in July of 2019 and an even higher fee 2 months ago in September. I'm pleased to report that these extensions have borne fruit, and the developer has indeed secured commitment from an investor to fund over $50 million in equity towards this $150 million project. We are requesting one final extension to allow both parties and their lawyers to memorialize the agreement in accordance with all applicable regulations. You'll see in the board memorandum that the developer has agreed to pay an additional fee for this requested extension.
Okay. Do you have any questions from the board?
Is Opportunity Zone funding being used for this?
Yes, for the equity.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11, request authorization to enter into an easement agreement with National Grid to service the building on parcel X-26-1 located at 1008, 1012 Tremont Street in the South End Urban Renewal Area. Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. My name is Stephen Harvey, and I'm a project manager at the BPDA, and I want to thank you for your time today. 1008-1012 Tremont Street, also known as parcel X-26-1, is appearing before the board today requesting authorization to enter into an easement agreement with National Grid to service their newly constructed building. The project located in the south end in the South Cove urban renewal area is adjacent to BPDA property and needs approval from the agency in order for National Grid to install a gas line to the newly constructed building. The project itself has a very long history with the agency. The BPDA issued the RFP for the urban renewal parcel in 2008 and approved the development of the site in 2012. This request would allow the proponent to complete the construction of the building, so I hope the board can move forward with granting this request. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 12, request authorization to advertise and issue a public bid for the culvert and sinkhole repairs at Pier 4 in the Charlestown Navy Yard. Paul.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. This is to request authorization to advertise a public bid for what's called a box culvert and sinkhole repairs in the Charlestown Navy Yard at Pier 4. Dry Dock 2, Pier 4 has an abandoned underground 10 by 10 concrete box culvert formerly used to drain the dry dock that is unsupported due to deteriorated wood pilings for the majority of the 100-foot length that spans over the water. Because of this topside, depressions and sediment were a continued problem next to the flagship rotary. So in simple terms, the culvert is it's like a square tunnel coming out of the dry dock, which when it was operating, they'd use that as a mechanism to pump the water out of the basin. It's been quite a number of years since that it's been in operation, and part of the problem that we're dealing with is the culvert itself expands into the water area once it leaves the land side, and underneath the culvert itself is wood pilings, and the wood pilings are all deteriorated. In September 2018, BPDA engaged the services of PAR engineers to evaluate the existing conditions, find the cause of the settlements, and solve the problems. The engineers used divers to determine the extent of the problem below the concrete culvert and wharf area, and determined that the culvert is dangerously unsupported in many of the underwater locations due to the deteriorated wood pilings. The recommended repair option determined the safest and most effective repair is the forming and pouring of a fully supported concrete foundation underneath the entire unsupported culvert. This is a difficult and costly repair. However, the option ensures workers' safety so that no workers need to enter the space beneath the unsupported culvert to complete the repair. Construction bid documents are now complete and ready for public bid, and all permits are in hand, which included the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, Chapter 91 Waterways. The Boston Conservation Commission is in hand, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is an amazing task to accomplish, believe me. Construction cost estimate is approximately $700,000, and this amount is budgeted for the BPDA's fiscal year 2020 budget. So the staff recommends authorization to advertise this project in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30, 39M, and we are prepared to do so. So if any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 13, request authorization to enter into a contract with Carla Senior, doing business as KMZ Snow, for snow clearing, removal, and salting sanding for BRA-owned citywide properties for 1 year with 2 one-year options and an amount not to exceed $250,000 for the initial 1-year term. John.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, on August 15, 2019, the board has authorized staff to advertise public bid for a contract for snow clearing for the BRA parcels. On October 24, 2019, 4 bids were received, and KMZ's snow bid met all the requirements, and they were the most responsive and responsible lowest bidder at that price. So hereby we request that we reward to KMZ, also a woman-owned business.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Yep.
Okay. Item number 14, request authorization to issue a partial certificate of completion to General Electric Company for the General Electric headquarters project located at 5 Necco Street in the 4 Point neighborhood, South Boston waterfront area, with planned development area number 69, South Boston, the 100 acres 69. And a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Item number 15, request authorization to adopt the update to the accessibility guidelines and checklist into the Article 80 design review process. Chris, or, no, not Chris. Boston.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis. In 2014, the BPDA board voted to adopt the accessibility guidelines and accessibility checklist in an effort to better incorporate accessible design and improve overall accessibility in the Article 80 review process. To support the inclusion of persons with disabilities, the guidelines and checklist request preliminary project details that are intended to ensure all individuals have an equal experience that includes the fullest participation in the built environment. BPDA and the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities have worked closely to review and discuss the need for further updates and clarifications to the checklist to achieve this important goal. Krista McCosh, Commissioner of the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities, is here to present those updates, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for, just push it a little bit. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Good afternoon. I'm Krista McCosh, the Disability Commissioner for the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We've been working very closely with the BPDA for several years on this checklist, and we had a few updates that we wanted to institute, hoping to get your approval. First of all, I just wanted to talk, if we can go to the next slide, about cities in general and the approach to the built environment. We believe a humanistic, people-friendly city is first and foremost an accessible city where mobility is a priority for all. That being said, in the city of Boston, some very brief statistics, over 78,000 residents identify as having a disability. Of these residents, over 40,000 identify as having a mobility disability. And these don't account for people who come in for work or visitors, tourists every year, potentially over 1 million visitors, upwards of millions of visitors come to Boston every year. So we have tens of thousands of people with disabilities on our streets every day, using our buildings, going to businesses, looking for housing. So it's a critical issue in the city. The Article 80 checklist was developed about 5 years ago, and it's a tool for developers to ensure that access is incorporated at the beginning of the design and stays as a priority throughout, rather than putting it in at the end. The Article 80 checklist does not impose any new mandates. It simply captures all the ADA and AAB accessibility requirements into one document. This update has very few changes, which I'll go over now. First of all, we've made checkboxes for yes or no for just about half of the questions. There are 41 questions, 23 of which can be answered with a yes, no, and we don't want to see developers leave any questions blank. So with this checkbox, it will be very easy for them to check off which one is appropriate. Accessibility guidelines, we added 2 questions to ask about any potential AAB variances, and also so that they can look at potential fixes rather than applying for a variance, and also to ask if they're working with an access consultant. Then we added a few more details on accessible route, connections with stairs and elevators, interior and exterior. A few other things we talked about, we added options for community benefits that look at transit and public realm. We talked about pilot lead credits for social inclusion, things like adding an extra bathroom that's companion only, a single stall for companions, and we put additional resources for age-friendly and lead pilot credits. And that's pretty much a summary of the changes, and we hope to get approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order. So moved. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 16. Request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Zoning Code in connection with the notice of project change for the change of owner to DHN 425 Border Street LLC for the construction of 16 home ownership condominium units, including 2 IDP units and 16 off-street parking spaces located at 425 Border Street, and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. 425 Border Street in East Boston was originally approved by the BRA board on October 11th of 2018. The previous owner, PhD Homes, LLC received approval to construct a 5-story, 20,000-plus gross square foot residential development. The new owner, DHN 425 Water Street LLC, acquired ownership and development rights for the approved project on December 19th of 2018. DHN 425 Border Street LLC filed a notice of project change on October 21st, last month, to recognize the change of ownership only in order to execute all necessary documents. The approved projects program continues to be 16 condominium units, including 2 IDP units. There's also $20,000 in community benefits, $10,000 to the East Boston Social Centers, and $10,000 to the city's funds for parks for the benefit of the East Boston Greenway. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 47 rental units, including 6 IDP units, 2 commercial spaces, and 33 off-street parking spaces located at 99-105 Fairmont Avenue, and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The proposed project is located on Fairmont Avenue in Hyde Park, about 3 blocks south of Logan Square. The project site consists of one parcel that is approximately 29,000 plus square feet of land, which currently contains 4 two-family homes to be raised. The proponent, the DeCipio Building Group, proposes to construct a 4-story mixed-use building containing 47 rental units, including 6 IDP units with 2 commercial spaces and 33 garage parking spaces. Amenities for residents include a multi-purpose room, a roof deck, and bicycle storage for 47 bikes. The proponent will also make a community benefit contribution of $60,000, $40,000 contribution to the Boston Transportation Department to implement pedestrian, ADA, and bicycle access improvements in the vicinity around the project site in the Fairmont Commuter Rail Station, as well as $20,000 contribution to the city's fund for parks to plant trees and horticultural improvements in Cleary and Logan Squares. On September 25th, the proponent filed an Article 80 application. The public meeting was held on October 22nd at the Boston Police Academy. The meeting was advertised in the Hyde Park Bulletin on October 10th, and the comment period concluded on November 1st. I would just like to add that District City Councilor Timothy McCarthy submitted a letter of support, and that staff is really excited about this proposal moving forward because it's going to add the density we're looking for along the Fairmont rail line. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Polgini from the development team. John?
Thanks, John. Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, members of the board, John Polgini on behalf of the developer DeCipio Builders Group. We're really excited to be here this evening. This proposal, if you guys are familiar with this area, it's right on the Fairmont Bridge. It's right adjacent to the Fairmont Commuter Rail Station, which now they're talking about soon to becoming a rapid transportation area. So Hyde Park has been right adjacent. You can see a building in the, to the right of the proposal there. That was the former location of the Fairmont Grill, one of 2 restaurants that we have, sit-down restaurants that we have in Hyde Park, which has closed. So as Councilor McCarthy had put in his letter, Hyde Park is really struggling in the business district with density. The restaurants are going out of business because there just isn't enough people there. We went through a very good community process, had a lot of support in the neighborhood. People realized that, you know, the density of development, this is accomplishing the goals of more housing for the city, but also smartly in the sense that it's directly adjacent to the Fairmont train station, and it's, you know, less than a quarter of a mile away from the Hyde Park commuter rail as well. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rick Schmidt, who's the team architect, and he'll walk you through the designs, and I'm here to answer any questions. But again, thank you for having us here this afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, John. I'm Rick Schmidt, architect of the project, and I'll walk you through our design, and at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. John had kind of run through this, the community benefits. Oh, I gotta go back the other way then. So here's the overall site plan. The yellow highlighted street is Fairmount Avenue. Our building is right in the center of this diagram, the site, which is adjacent to Fairmount Commuter Rail Station. We're within a half-mile walking distance to several community spaces, playgrounds, and very close to Logan Square and Cleary Square here. The context is the site currently has the 4 two-family homes. That's the upper left of that photograph. On the upper right, you can see the pedestrian entrance to the commuter rail station and the existing 4 two-family homes. As John had mentioned, that was the former location on the lower left of the Fairmount Grill. And then on the lower right is a view of the site from Maple Street. And what you'll see is that a portion of our site continues to the left and it becomes steeply sloping and heavily vegetated there. We're looking to maintain as much of that as possible. The building design is essentially in the place of where the two-family homes that are there now is the site that we're talking about. Here's an existing conditions site plan. The zoning for this lot is 2F 5000, but it's surrounded by a neighborhood shopping 2 district. And you can see the 4 two-family homes. The site slopes up towards the Fairmount Bridge to the right, and it slopes up very steeply up to Oak Street, where we have two-family homes on the bottom of this diagram that are existing. Here's a site plan. What we're doing is the first floor elevation is broken into 4 main elevations so that we're able to provide accessibility along the slope of Fairmount Avenue. On the left side of the diagram, we have 2 commercial spaces that are roughly about 1,250 square feet each. On the right side of the diagram along Fairmount Avenue, we have garden apartments. Those have private entrances and private gardens facing Fairmount Avenue. And then in the rear of the diagram on the bottom, we have a mixture of private and public outdoor space for the residents of the building. On Maple Street, we have a secondary building lobby, and we have a garage that is completely underground on the lower level. And here's a floor plan of the garage, 33 parking spaces here. We've got the secondary lobby, bike storage, and some building services on this floor. Building has an elevator, stairs in it. Here's a perspective view of what the garden apartments would look like along Fairmount Avenue. Private accessible entrances there. And here's a view of the Maple Street entrance to the building. To the left, you've got a garage entrance and building services for deliveries. A secondary building lobby is in the center of the building there. And then we're supplementing the planting along Maple Street. Here are elevations of the building. The top elevation is along Fairmount Avenue. The right side of the diagram shows the commercial space. We're trying to put generous storefront there to pick up on the commercial aspects of Fairmount Avenue. On the right side of that elevation are the garden apartments, and they're more residential scaled. To break down the mass of the building, we're creating some changes of plane as well as changes of materials that we're using there. The lower left diagram shows the secondary building lobby as well as the garage entrance on Maple Street. The right side of the building shows a shared driveway with the adjacent property and the commercial use of the building turning the corner there. There is a shared outdoor deck on the 4th floor at that point, and the building steps down to be more in scale with the adjacent architecture on Fairmount Avenue. We continue this articulation around the rear of the building. All of the units on the bottom floor there have outdoor garden space, and you can see the garage below grade. And then here's a section through it showing the garage, commercial space on the 1st floor, residential units are highlighted in red, and then you can see the existing slope and the adjacent multifamily homes up on Oak Street. So with that, I conclude the presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
I have one question. How did you render the two-family homes empty? Were they occupied when you purchased the land?
So they don't fit, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember when these buildings went up about 17 years ago. It's a commercial district, and you have these 4 two-families that are sitting there. The DeCipio Building Group actually built these two families years ago. So what they've done is they've retained a local real estate agent who does leasing. They'll pay for, and they've been informing their tenants all along, they'll pay for them to move and find them suitable housing or alternative housing while this construction goes on, pay for that move to there, and then pay for them to come back in if they want to return to the building, once this building is constructed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How have you dealt with possible flooding coming off of that slope?
We'll be working with our geotechnical engineer and our civil engineer to make sure that we have full drainage there. The current area that we're talking about gardens being is at about the same level as the existing parking lot, and that is draining fairly effectively now. Our thought on the slope is that we'd like to supplement the planting that's there and reduce any runoff that would happen along there.
All right. Any further questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 18, request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80A-6 of the Boston Zoning Code, approving the notice of project change for the change of ownership to Nevem West Broadway LLC for the construction of 44 rental residential units, including 6 IDP units, 13,500 square feet of commercial space, and 66 off-street parking spaces with bicycle storage located at 457 through 469A West Broadway, and to take all related actions. John.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. 457, 469A West Broadway in South Boston was originally approved by the BRA Board on February 8th of 2018. The previous owner, 463 West Broadway LLC, received approval to construct the 5-story, 65,000-plus gross square foot mixed-use development containing the 44 residential rental units and the 13,000-plus square foot commercial space and 66 garage parking spaces. The new owner, Navern West Broadway LLC, acquired ownership and development rights for the approved project on September 12th of 2019. Navern West Broadway LLC filed its notice of project change on October 21st to recognize the change of ownership only in order to execute all necessary documents. The approved projects program continues to be the 44 rental units, including 6 IDP units. There is also an $80,000 contribution to the community benefits, $20,000 of that to the Boston Transportation Department to do improvements at the intersection of West Broadway, East Broadway, and Dorchester Street, as well as $60,000 contribution to the BPDA that will be released as grants via an application for community benefits program that is directed by our Administration and Finance Department. So with that, I'd like to take any questions you might have.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, motion
Thank
passes.
you.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. All right. Item number 19. Request authorization to adopt the demonstration project plan under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 121B, Section 46F, as amended, for the acquisition and disposition of the air rights adjacent to Zero Athens LLC for the construction of 55 residential rental units, 2,600 square feet of ground floor retail space, and 2 parking spaces for the 21 through 35 West 2nd Street project, to adopt certain findings related to the demonstration project plan, to petition the City of Boston Public Improvement Commission to discontinue the taking areas, to adopt an order of taking for air rights, and to execute a deed conveying the taking areas to the proponent, and to take all related actions. Ainsley.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good evening, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On January 17th, 2019, this board approved Zero Athens LLC's, a subsidiary of Transom Real Estate, proposal for the construction of a 6-story mixed-use building at 21 to 35 West 2nd Street in South Boston, totaling approximately 49,928 square feet of gross floor area and including approximately 55 residential rental units and approximately 2,600 square feet of ground floor retail space. The construction of the project, as approved by this board, requires 4 vertical discontinuances over the West 2nd Street sidewalk, totaling approximately 225 square feet of horizontal plain area. The vote before you this evening requests authorization for the BPDA to adopt a demonstration project plan for the West 2nd Street air rights adjacent to the 2135 West 2nd Street project, co-petition the Public Improvement Commission for the discontinuance of the taking area, and for the director to execute a deed conveying the taking areas to Zero Athens LLC. We're joined this evening by Nicholas Zazula on behalf of the development team, and we're happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Thank you.
At what height does the taking start? It's not starting at the ground, right? It's starting at
Correct.
15 feet or something?
It begins at 30 feet, I believe. 10 feet, I apologize. 10 feet it starts, 10 feet up. So it's 5 stories, essentially.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 20, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the zoning code for the construction of Alston Square project consisting of 348 rental residential units, including 45 IDP units, 12 live-work units, 15,155 square feet of retail space, and 158 parking spaces located on various parcels at Wilson Terrace, Braintree Street, Franklin Street, Harvard Avenue, and Cambridge Street, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The project consists of 6 buildings, each between 3 and 7 stories in height, with a combined residential space totaling a maximum of 351,500 square feet. The project will be built in 2 phases, overall containing 244 condominiums, 100 rental units, totaling 344, for the record, not 348 units, but 344. 45 IDP units have been identified, 12 of which will be live-work units, and 5 ground floor spaces totaling, 5 ground floor retail spaces totaling 15,860 square feet and 158 associated parking spaces. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to D'Artagnan Brown to give you a brief overview. Members from the development team, City Realty, are here to answer questions for the board.
Thank you, Lance. Madam Chair, members of the board, D'Artagnan Brown, architect from Embark. Thanks for having us today. So by way of overview, if I can just jump to it, this is Cambridge Street with the Mass Pike located here. We have a combination of 6 parcels off of Cambridge from Linden, Highgate, and Harvard, and then as we cross over to Braintree and Wilton Terrace. Working through the process, we've met numerous meetings over the last year and a half, both with BPDA, BCDC, to arrive at the project tonight. So starting on the left side here off of Cambridge Street, the parcel wraps off Cambridge, crosses over Wilton Terrace. There's master plans for really activation along Braintree, so we spent a lot of time with the BPDA and community understanding how that impacts our building. The building at Alston Hall will be fully, go through a full historic rehabilitation. As we cross over to Harvard Street, which goes down into the commercial and residential districts, this really becomes the gateway building. A lot of that was spent with the BPDA and BCDC in formulating our approach for this, jumping across. This is the Jack Young building. A lot of you will know that as you drive into the city. That will go through a full historic renovation as well, with the addition to the right of that, and then another building that steps down into the residential neighborhood. Working with our landscape architect and again the town and the city throughout this process, what we've really identified are two anchoring parks, urban parks along Highgate Street, and then one off of Wilton Terrace, fully activated with ground floor retail. Off of Franklin Street as well, we've pulled back so the existing historic building can really stand proud, and allowed for an area to create a local use cafe. This is kind of the cross connection through the sites. We have a pretty heavy arts theme and narrative that's worked through all the buildings, which you'll see in a minute. So a lot of attention was paid to how we can engage that, working with the local community to really amplify the pedestrian experience. So existing view again along Cambridge Street and the Mass Pike. This is a proposed development, really treating it as a full block width. The existing Jack Young that will get renovated. The addition, it steps across, kind of forms a secondary gateway down Highgate Street and then wraps down to Harvard Street here. The view looking back the other way. So again, all the way from the Jack Young, playing off of that existing curve as we come across with the anchoring retail space at the base. Artist work live that engages out onto the pedestrian way. The building at 28 Harvard, corner anchor retail. And then the Highgate building with almost a 40-foot wide, privately owned but public use park. As we jump across the street to the Franklin, Braintree, and Wilton Terrace side, starting on the right here, this is the Alston Hall that will go through a full renovation. The new building will intertwine behind that, jumping across to 415 Cambridge. Proposed development here, so you can see the large urban scale park, entry to the residential, ground floor retail, building wraps around, continues across with the Alston Hall being preserved and the outdoor use cafe there as well. The view along Braintree Street here, so again, working with BPDA and BCDC was to really have that fully activated from Alston Hall all the way down to the tip of Braintree Street with active retail along Cambridge Street. Here's that park area. And then off of, this is Franklin and Wilton Street, having a secondary park that then would cross connect through, ground floor retail, activated use along Braintree. And again, just in terms of overview, 344 units, of which 45 are IDP, spanning along Cambridge Street from Linden through Highgate, across Harvard, and then onto Wilton Terrace. Thank you.
Does that conclude the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
What's the duration of construction? And how will you mitigate some of the traffic impacts at this intersection, which is intense?
My name is Josh Fetterman from City Realty. The construction hopefully would start in late 2020 and go over the course of 2 years. We've worked with the two local civic groups, BAIA and ACA, and committed to come back to them with our CMP plan, our construction management plan, and hold regular updates for the community to kind of soften the impact.
Just to add, it's a two-phase development, so we would start with half of the sites, use the other sites for staging, and then as the other buildings go up, we would cut across to the other sites.
There are a lot of thriving nightlife venues in this neighborhood, and there was concern by many of them that introducing this large number of residents will lead to conflict with noise made by live music venues and hurt the artist scene there. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so this came up early with the Alston Village Main Streets, who advocates for these businesses, and we talked about implementing disclosures in our lease agreements and also in the condo sales to reduce the impact that neighbors might, or complaints that neighbor might have, and also look at sound transmission on those buildings facing these local businesses.
Are you going to be adding soundproofing into these units?
Yep. So part of the design of the envelope would take that into account. We would engage an acoustical engineer to work with us in picking out the right STC and UTC ratings for this development.
A lot of people were mentioning an agent of change policy. What is that? A lot of the letters mention that. What is that?
That is what was suggested by the Main Streets organization, where in essentially just disclosure up front to potential tenants or new homeowners to make sure that they're aware of what's existing in the neighborhood.
So that is going to be happening?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And do you know what's happening to the hardware store?
No, I don't.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 21, request authorization to adopt the Second Amendment to report and decision on the Brighton Alston Elderly Homes Incorporated, also known as McNamara House Chapter 121A, which involves approval of a new mortgage loan. Mallory.
Thank you, Chairwoman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. Brighton Alston Elderly Homes, Inc., aka McNamara House Chapter 121A project, is an 80-unit project consisting of a single building located at 210 Everett Street in Alston, containing 79 low-income elderly disabled affordable units and one non-subsidized manager's unit, and receives rental subsidies pursuant to a project-based Section 8 contract on all 79 units used to assist elderly and handicapped persons. On October 24th, 2019, the owner filed an application with the BPDA requesting approval for a new mortgage loan and certain capital improvements and alterations to the project. The owner has received a loan commitment from Rockport Mortgage Corporation for up to $21,300,800 in new financing secured by a first mortgage lien on the project to be insured by the HUD under provisions of Section 223F of the National Housing Act, and will be used to repay the senior loan, finance approximately $225,000 of capital improvements, fund reserves, and pay certain transaction expenses. Additionally, the owner intends to continue use of the project for 100% affordable rental housing for low-income elderly and disabled households under the project-based HUD Section 8 rental subsidy program, and will renew its Section 8 contract for a period of 20 years in connection with the loan refinancing. The BPDA shall be identified as a party entitled to enforce these affordability restrictions.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 22. Request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review of pursuant to Section 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change for the 270 Baker Street project for the change of ownership to Benai Birth Housing New England Incorporated, and to change the 60 affordable home ownership units to 60 affordable rental units, to reduce parking from 90 to 60 parking spaces, and to take all related actions. Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman, Chairwoman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. My name is Stephen Harvey, and I'm a project manager at the BPDA, and I want to thank you again for having me today. The project I bring before you today is 270 Baker Street, originally approved by the board on September 14, 2007. On August 28, 2009, I received a notice of project change request from 270 Baker LLC, the proponent and owner of the property. The proponent proposed certain ownership, tenure, affordability, and design changes to the board-approved project. I will allow the new intended proponents, Benai Birth Housing New England, Inc., to elaborate on these changes in the presentation. The MPC maintains the unit count of 60 units, but changes the housing assignment from market rate condos to all affordable rental units. We met with the community via public meeting on September 16, 2019, and November 6, 2019, and the comment period ended November 8, 2019. Now I'll allow the BBN team to elaborate on the changes.
Hi, my name is Jesse Kansen-Benanav. I'm a senior project manager at B'nai B'rith Housing, and I have with me our project architect, Iric Rex from Davis Square Architects, Susan Gittleman, our executive director, and Don Weist, our attorney. B'nai B'rith Housing is a nonprofit housing developer with a mission to help ease the housing crisis in Greater Boston. We have a 40-year history in the city of Boston with our Covenant House community in Brighton, and we've done work in other parts of the region, including Newton, Sudbury, Swampscott, and we're excited to have another project in the city of Boston. We're excited to, live up to the BPDA's goals of live, work, and connect with this project at 270 Baker Street. We are particularly excited to bring the substantial community benefit of 60 income-restricted affordable housing units to West Roxbury, the neighborhood that has the lowest percentage of income-restricted housing in the city of Boston, as well as other benefits that the project brings. This is a site map of the context of our project. As you can see, it is located in a large industrial complex. We'll have some photos that show that, mostly impervious pavement, but with great access to commercial district along Spring Street and Center Street, access to the West Roxbury commuter rail station, as well as hospitals and other businesses along VFW Parkway. As I mentioned, the site is mostly paved, impervious industrial park. More views of the site. This is a view from Baker Street, which is the frontage for the property. We will maintain green landscaping, and Iric, our architect, will elaborate on our landscaping along the Baker Street side, as well as expand it to other areas of the site. Existing conditions, there is a small green area, but we look forward to expanding the landscaping and public realm. Again, more impervious pavement. As the BPDA project manager mentioned, this was previously proposed and permitted by a previous developer for 60 condominium units in 2 buildings. We are proposing to modify the approval. We are changing the project from the 2 buildings that were approved, reducing the massing into 1 building, and retaining the 60-unit count, but converting it to affordable rental housing. As Stephen mentioned, we have had 2 community meetings where we've presented this information to members of the West Roxbury community. We were fortunate to receive confirmation from the ZBA on Tuesday that our project does fit within all zoning relief that was granted to the prior project, even with our reduction in the building. And our building massing has decreased as well. This is a listing of the changes that we are proposing. Again, we are eliminating the smaller building. We are reducing the overall square footage of the residential building by 21%. We're changing the bedroom mix to have 15 fewer bedrooms. We're also reducing the parking ratio for a 1-to-1 ratio, 60 parking spaces for 60 units. We have been discussing the option and will be pursuing renting overflow night and weekend parking from an adjacent commercial property owner. A number of other small changes, and I'll let Iric talk about our design in a moment, but I wanted to stress the major community benefit here being the introduction of 60 income-restricted affordable homes to the West Roxbury community. We intend to include 45 units for families that make up to 60% of the area median income, and 15 units for families that make up to 90% of the area median income. Again, that is all 60 units being income-restricted affordable housing. We are also fulfilling all community benefits that the previous developer agreed to, including removing 2 blighted homes from the Catholic Memorial property adjacent to ours, donating to the West Roxbury Little League, improving Simbroco Street, which is actually a private way that is part of our property, and again, keeping the site on the city's property tax payroll. So I will hand it over to Iric now to talk about design.
Hello, I'm Iric Rex from Davis Square Architects. When we started working on this project with B'nai B'rith, it was already approved, as Jesse described, and it had taken quite a long process to be approved. And we listened at a couple community meetings to the community comments about what the difficult points were. And when we started to work with our design, we tried to make the building better in many ways from the community point of view. The new design the new building is designed to have less impact, less visual impact and other impact to the community. And the ways in which we plan to do this, we are maintaining or increasing setbacks in some important directions, which are sensed from the Simbroco neighborhood, which is to the south on the site plan. Of course, by turning it from two buildings into one, we're able to shorten the facade, which they're going to see from that side. Also, the U shape of the building makes it appear more compact while fitting, as Jesse said, the same number of dwelling units. We're also, the other building, the previous building design had parking under, and we will not have parking under, so we're able to lower the whole building. So it'll just be quite a few feet less tall, and therefore less visual impact from, once again, from the Simbroco neighborhood side. The landscape buffer is going to include trees, shrubs, and fences to help buffer from the new building from the neighborhood, and also the new U shape allows us to build quite a big green space on the interior of that on the interior of that courtyard, which will include a tot lot. The elevations will include fiber cement siding, panels and trim, and accent panels of composite or metal standing seam siding to offer a variety to the exterior, which is very similar to the previously approved elevations. Lastly, we oriented the main entrance of the building toward the parking lot for ease of use by the residents. And we have provided a tree-lined walkway that will connect the building entrance to Simbroco so that it'll be a pleasant walking path, and that helps to establish the buffer also with the neighborhood. And we were able to put tree islands into the parking lot to make that a more pleasant space. Thank you.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
That's, yes.
Want to say something, Tim?
Yes, Tim Davis, Housing Policy Manager. I'm here, obviously, this is a great project, but also just a very neat amendment to the board agenda. On this item, it says that to change the 60 affordable home ownership units to 60 affordable rental units. As you heard in the presentation, the previously approved project was a market rate project. Mm-hmm. So just to delete the word affordable between 60 and home ownership. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so any questions from the board?
Is this project receiving public financing?
Yes, we are pursuing funding from the Department of Neighborhood Development, as well as tax credits and subsidy from the state of Massachusetts.
Great.
Any further questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 23. Request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change for the 350 Boylston Street project due to the lapse of time for the previously approved project consisting of 15,000 square feet of ground floor retail and restaurant space, a fitness center and spa, office space, and 150 parking and a below-grade parking garage, to amend the affordable housing agreement and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Just by way of clarity, there's no affordable housing agreement associated with this project. However, we are seeking to amend the other Article 80 documents. So just a point of clarity. By way of background, the 350 Boylston Street project was originally approved by the BRA board on October 16, 2008, and consists of a 9-story mixed-use building that will contain office, retail, and fitness space, as well as 150 off-street parking spaces at the corner of Arlington Street and Boylston Street in the Back Bay. Following the original approval by the BRA board, the proponent obtained the necessary zoning relief to advance the project and proceeded to execute all of the applicable Article 80 documents with the BRA. However, the project did not advance to construction. Fast forward to today, because of the lapse of time since the original approval, the proponent was required to submit a notice of project change specifically for the lapse of time, which was submitted on September 17th, 2019. The submission of that document triggered a public comment period, which concluded on October 17th, and during that time frame, the BPDA sponsored and held a public meeting at the Copley branch of the Boston Public Library to discuss the project with the community at large. The size and scope of the project remain unchanged from what was originally approved in 2008, aside from some minor design adjustments that were made pursuant to the original approval. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Ronald Drucker of the Drucker Company, who'll run through a brief presentation on the project. At the end of the presentation, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. We're delighted to be in front of you. As Mr. DeVerge outlined, this project was approved in 2008 and 2010. We have achieved our zoning exceptions, Boston Civic Design Commission approval. We've had recent approval from the BPDA on our design development drawings. We have our Article 85 demolition delay period has expired. The Public Improvement Commission approved our plans, and our uses really the building really hasn't changed. We have asked in our notice of project change that we be allowed to put retail on the second floor possibly, but the amount of retail has remained the same. The size of the building at 221,230 square feet has not changed. The height of 9 stories has not changed. We have the same number of parking spaces at 150 spaces. We have increased the number of bicycle spaces by 39 from 27 to 66, and the massing has not changed. The location is right at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Street. The ground floor will be devoted to retail. The pink, as you see, is retail, which will enliven the streetscape. We developed in 1988 the Heritage on the Garden. All of the service will be off of the street. The building is designed by Robert A. M. Stern Architects, who's internationally recognized. The building is limestone with retail on the ground floor. And what we really endeavored to do was to form an appropriate background and not to compete architecturally with the Arlington Street Church, which stands so proudly adjacent to us. The retail on the ground floor is an important element of the building, and once again, this will be limestone. Our retail will be similar to that at the Heritage on the Garden, and it will include a restaurant, but mostly international tenants. Public benefits are such that we'll be paying $1,994,000 to the housing. Our total linkage is $1,003,000. Our jobs contribution is $215,000. We'll be paying approximately $2 million in taxes. We'll be contributing $25,000 to support neighborhood improvements. We'll create approximately 300 construction jobs, 800 permanent jobs. We are paying current linkage fees, which are beyond those of the time when the project was originally approved. We'll be paying approximately $221,230 to our neighbor, the Arlington Street Church, which has an extensive renovation program going on right now, and will also be contributing $25,000 to the Women's Lunch Place. And we look forward to bringing a terrific building to this very significant corner. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Just last month, we approved a project on Stewart Street that's preserving the Art Deco exterior of the parking garage and all of the elements on the building. I'm curious why you aren't able to build a building here that preserves the beautiful exterior of the existing building.
So I'm sorry, the question is why?
The question is, why are you not able to preserve the existing beautiful exterior of the building?
That's a very good question, and we looked into that quite thoroughly. The fact is that there's a steam line which runs at both a right angle on Arlington Street and Boylston Street, which is right at the sidewalk, as well as the green line, which is on Boylston Street. So in order to preserve the facade, like which was done at Russia Wharf, one needs to put footings well down into the ground. We don't have the room to do that because it would go right into the steam line or right into the green line.
So you're able to build the new building without the footings?
We don't go outside of the bounds of the site.
Okay.
Thank you.
I commend you on the range of support that you have generated for this project, and from what I can tell, the only real opposition came from folks at the Preservation Alliance who raised a similar question about preservation. You've retained a very distinguished architect with a long reputation for doing essentially classical forms. And my comment is less a question than a comment that that architect bring the same kind of sensibility and aesthetic to the extent possible to this building, given that you want it to be something of a backdrop, but inevitably it's going to stand out on that location. And I think everyone will want to see the same quality of work that Stern has done in other projects here and in New York.
I meet with Robert A.M. Stern regularly. He's part of the process, and he's dedicated, because he understands Boston, he's dedicated to doing a fine building on this corner. You know, I'm the third generation of a family which is developed in this city. Hotel Kenmore, Hotel Braemore. Kenmore Square is named after the hotel, not the hotel after the square. And my father did the colonnade, and I did the heritage. So we're committed to doing things well, and this is very important for us.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 24, request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review of pursuant to Section 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change for the Winthrop Square for the reduction of 113 residential units an increase of 22,422 square feet of office space, and the net loss of 50 parking spaces located at the 115 Federal Street, to amend the affordable housing agreement and any and all necessary documents, and to take all related actions. Jonathan.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the board, Director Gold, and Madam Secretary. My name is Jonathan Gurley from the BPDA. I'm doing my best to fill in for Casey Hines this evening. As you know, the 115 Winthrop Square project in downtown Boston, now entitled Winthrop Center, was originally approved by this board in May of 2018. As approved, the 1.65 million square foot building was to include 760,000 square feet of residential space and 750,000 square feet of office space, in addition to amenity, retail, restaurant, support, and shared meeting space. Since receiving approval, the existing structure on this site has been demolished and foundation work is underway. In addition, the proponent has continued conversations with the abutters and BPDA staff through the design review process. Those conversations, paired with an evolving market condition, have resulted in some modifications to the project. On October 28th, 2019, the proponent filed a notice of project change formally requesting the following changes. Number one, the gross square feet of the project has been reduced from 1.65 million square feet to 1.545 million square feet. Embedded in this is the residential component, which was approved at 760,000 square feet, including 620,000 square feet of sellable square footage, and a number of up to 500 units has been refined, now with 662,000 square feet of residential, 582,714 square feet of which is sellable, and 387 units. The office component for this project is also now correspondingly increased by from 750,000 square feet to 772,000 square feet. The parking garage, finally, the parking garage, which was approved at 5 levels below grade, has been decreased by 1 level. Will now be parking anywhere from 400 to 500 spaces. It is important to note that the height of this project remains the same at 691 square feet. The approximately 40,000 gross square feet of publicly accessible retail, restaurant, and support spaces on the ground floor and mezzanine have not changed. And lastly, the Great Hall will be fully realized at its original size of 40 feet wide and 60 feet tall. The Great Hall has been renamed the Connector. The project's affordable housing requirement, the project's affordable housing agreement required the proponent to contribute 18% of the sellable square footage of the residential area to an off-site location, in addition to $4 million voluntary contribution to the IDP fund. In connection with the notice of project change, there will be a decrease in sellable square feet, which would result in a loss of approximately 7 affordable units off-site. To offset this reduction, the proponent has agreed to an additional 3 million square feet to support. Has agreed to an additional $3 million to support this proposed Parcel 12C project. BPDA staff hosted an impact advisory group meeting on November 6th where the changes were presented and discussed. The comment period for the MPC concluded on November 12th, 2019. We have representatives here from the Millennium Project. We have representatives here from the Millennium Project team should you have any further questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, Ayes have it. Oh.
I didn't realize Kathy's behind me.
They have no questions, I'm good.
Okay, great.
It's okay.
Okay. I think the ayes still have it, and the motion passes. I'll give a gavel in there, like what? I think we're good. Okay. All right. Okay, great. Item number 25, Jamaica Plain. Okay. Request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80B-5.4 C4, large project review of the zoning code for the construction of 202 affordable residential units located at 3368 Washington Street, and to take all related actions. Dana.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, and Secretary Polimas. I'm Dana Whiteside, Deputy Director for Community Economic Development with the agency, and very pleased to stand with the development team regarding this particular project. This proposal, the 3368 Washington Street project, is a result of a collaboration between Pine Street Inn and a development entity known as the Community Builders, which has presented previous projects before us. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the context in which this project is being proposed, and a little bit about the regulatory process for review that we undertook, and then I will hand it over to the development team to speak further to the details of the program itself. This project is the result, again, of the collaboration between these two entities, and sits on space that is currently owned by Pine Street Inn. The development team submitted a proposal to the agency on June 7th of this year. We, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, working with our city partners, hosted 3 large public meetings as well as 3 impact advisory group sessions to look at the project. And I should also note that this is one of the first development programs that is going to be emanating from the Plan Dudley initiative, which was approved by our board in 2017. And as such, there was a fair amount of scrutiny given to this development. As I'm sure you will recall, the Plan Dudley process was a very robust, but I think fruitful exercise that spoke to certain goals for this particular part of the city, particularly around the creation of affordable housing, the review of considerations that would enhance, I should say, result in really creative and important design guidelines that would keep to the character of the neighborhood, that would think about livability, and would also support diversity within the neighborhood, diversity of residents, diversity of incomes, et cetera. And this particular project really is within those guidelines and seeks to move forward with those. Very briefly, I'll say that the project, also because of the robust community engagement process that we undertook through these various public meetings, the original proposal sought to create a 6-story building with 225 units. As a result of stakeholder review and advice, the development team has made some modifications to the proposal, which you'll see a little further, to create a 5-story building. That being said, the 202 units will be all affordable. 140 of those units will be used for formerly homeless individuals, and they will all be at 30% area median income. The remaining 62 units, which will be rental, will be for low to moderate income, income restricted, and they will be between 30% AMI and 80% AMI. So the wonderful benefit of creating much needed affordability for this neighborhood that has really been a key goal and principle that came out of Plan JP Rocks. Briefly, the project will also create some much-needed infrastructure improvements as part of the mitigation package that's being proposed by the development team. The creation of wider sidewalks, the creation of a plaza area and an open space which will be utilized for the residents, the creation of a community room that will be accessible to the public, as well as providing for enhanced security along Washington Street through interior lights and exterior lights on the sidewalk, as well as collaboration and enhanced driveway access between the current building and the direct abutter, the BMS Paper Company. There will be ongoing conversations around the work around back of office operations between those two entities, as well as how the ways in which the shared driveway space will be utilized for this project and future development. With that, I will stop, and I'd like to acknowledge the presence of members of the development team, Jan Griffin, who's Vice President of Housing and Director of Planning for Pine Street Inn, Lydia Scott, who's the Director of this project for the Community Builders, and Eric Robinson from Rhodey Architects, who will lead you through the project description. First, I'd like to ask Ms. Griffin to come to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, I'll handle that.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Secretary, members of the board, and Director Golden. As Dana mentioned, this is a collaboration between the Pine Street Inn and the Community Builders. The Pine Street Inn focuses on ending homelessness by creating housing for people who are living in shelters and on the street. And the Community Builders, as you know, has a large portfolio of quality housing for people at all incomes. Pine Street Inn made a very good decision in 1997 when it bought 3368 Washington Street in Jamaica Plain. We did so because we were really bursting from the seams in our buildings in the south end, and we needed storage space. So we are thrilled that this project is going to provide 140 units for extremely low-income, chronically homeless individuals, and 62 units for low to moderate income families. The Pine Street Inn's current offices and storage uses will be replicated in the new building, and our social workers, purchasing department, and facility staff will be located there as they are today. The 3368 Washington Street project reflects the engagement of the Jamaica Plain community. Over the year that we have been talking about this project to the community, we have introduced the development with just very basic strategic goals. First, 100% affordability. Second, units to solve homelessness. Third, units for families who are struggling to find affordable housing in Boston. And third, to provide a dedicated community space for the neighbors to use. We're very grateful to the Jamaica Plain neighborhood. We have had over 30 meetings in the last year, some small, some extraordinarily large. And we have given tours of the Pine Street Inn buildings that are in Jamaica Plain. That we really was a wonderful experience for me personally. Minds were changed when people met our tenants, our social workers, saw our buildings, talked to neighbors. This is a housing first project, and often people are not familiar with that concept, and so we're very grateful for the number of people in Jamaica Plain who took a big time investment to learn about Pine Street's Inn housing. The process really informed the design, which Eric will now talk about, and the affordability structure ultimately of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. First of all, you sort of have to take a deep breath when you listen to that. And for me to reflect as an architect in the city, working all over the city, this building really is a reflection of both Pine Street and the community builders, as well as the community, the city. Michael and his team have been awesome. And everybody has really, their goal has been to make this project the best it can be. And we're super excited to be standing by as stewards of that. And we believe that the project's something that we can all be happy and excited about. So now it's time to build it, hopefully. So as Jan mentioned, this is some images of the existing property. So it's about a 40,000 square foot site, not on the corner of Green and Glen Road, but sort of mid-block, pretty close to the train station, with their one-story building on it that pretty much takes up most of the lot, with the exception of a little bit of a parking area. And as Dana mentioned, this is right in the JP Rocks master plan. You can see our building located here in the little black circle. We are in a high density zone and also a street activation zone. So these are all things that started to inform us before we even thought about how do we start to mass the building and think about the program on this site. We looked carefully through the JP Rocks. We appreciate the effort that was put behind that document and the effort that the neighborhood put forth to really want to make sure they're shaping their neighborhood in a great way. So we looked at all the aspects of it, the height considerations, the step backs, the setbacks, the movement of what they wanted to see on the project. And again, we're super excited that we think we've embraced that and really enhanced the quality of what was said in words in a building. So quickly, our first thought was thinking about the interior space of these units. These are residents that we want to make sure have awesome quality space. So we really built this idea of the building around an aperture into the units. The units are not all huge, but they are a place that someone can call home. So this was really an important first step that we wanted to make sure was carried throughout the whole project, and everybody really embraced that moment. So large windows that can be occupied. So we're looking at window seats in the units that'll really create an amazing environment for the residents to live in. So quickly, our massing moves were to establish 2 courtyard spaces, one off of the street, one internal that's south-facing for the residents, as well as the Pine Street Inn administrative offices, and that really shaped the entire program around the building. So thinking about the step backs, thinking about the vertical articulation of the street, we really wanted to make sure this building is a good civic neighbor and sets the precedent for excellent development on Washington Street. It's a little hard to see here, but as you can see, we worked very hard on creating an awesome streetscape that would be extra wide sidewalks that can be occupied, that can enhance the quality of both the residents as well as the residents at large and the abutters. So this took a lot of undertaking in terms of trying to make sure that the program worked well as our commitment to the streetscape and the activation on Washington Street. As we look at some of the images that were informed by this whole process, we're excited to see a building that we believe will anchor this institution for many years to come, and we also believe it is a quality design project with quality materials that everybody can be proud of. So here you can sort of see, it's a little bit hard, but this is the community room that Jan had mentioned, anchoring the corner of the building as it faces toward the most public intersection adjacent to us with the building and the residents above. And then looking at something that's a little bit more dynamic at the entry sequence. So there's a common residential entrance that really can be approachable and feel like it's something that is important and special for this building. A little bit of an aerial view, just thinking about the building as it fits into its context, ensuring that we're thinking about all sides of the building. It does abut a fairly large green space in the back, but thinking about how the materials and the exterior is wrapping around the entire building was something that was very important to both the community members to make sure that we're not only addressing the streetscape, but also thinking about the building in its entirety. Elevations, which a little hard to see, but it's really a combination of brick, which is anchoring the Washington Street side, and then a warmer woods look material that will warm up the entry sequence and also anchor that front corner where the community room is. And as we move around the building, we're looking at metal panels that are more of a clapboard style, so they start to blend into the community and the size of the buildings behind us. And then I think as our last image, it really is the one that we think sort of embodies the process. And we're looking at the community room here, activation on the street, something that is really part of the streetscape and the community, and also this awesome moment of residents moving into the building and activating a building at this stage. So, thank you.
That concludes the presentation, but I'd like to also make reference to the fact that we're mindful collectively that we are, with this project, serving two very important populations. Obviously, the folks who will be utilizing the services of Pine Street Inn, and also the residents of these income-restricted units. We're bringing together two really important populations. So as a part of our next steps will be ongoing work with the Department of Neighborhood Development, the Office of Fair Housing, as well as the Commission on Disabilities, to make sure that the design, internal and external, continues to speak to the dignity and the ways in which we hope to serve these populations. That concludes the presentation, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Can you talk about the financing for this project?
Yes, I'll ask Lydia to speak to that. Thank you.
Hi, so we are intending to seek not only low-income housing tax credits as well as city and state public subsidy for this project.
Tim Davis. I think just to speak specifically on the city funding, we do anticipate taking a vote to the Neighborhood Housing Trust for housing creation linkage funds from the 1 Congress Street HYM project over here to be specifically directed to this project. So it will be through a Neighborhood Housing Trust vote first, and it would come back to you for a vote probably in January.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, congratulations.
Great project.
Okay, we're going to take a short recess. So we'll see you in 5, or no, do I have to adjourn? 5 minutes. Resume the meeting and with the public hearing portion of today's agenda. So, this is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code to consider the notice of project change for Block N of the Seaport Square project within Planned Development Area number 78 in the South Boston waterfront as a development impact project. The proposed notice of project change seeks to permit a revised building program for Block N of the Seaport Square project comprised of approximately 38,000 square feet of retail, entertainment, restaurant, service uses, and approximately 384,000 square feet of office and/or research and development uses. This hearing was duly advertised on October 30th, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a Boston Planning and Development Agency hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by the members of the authority. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so, again, under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain, and at that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Ms. Kerr will present.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good evening again, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. In 2010, the Boston Redevelopment Authority Board voted to approve the approximately 23.5-acre Seaport Square project, which was later approved by the Boston Zoning Commission as Planned Development Area number 78. Most recently, in November of 2017, this board voted to approve a notice of project change to the originally approved project, and the Boston Zoning Commission later adopted an amended and restated development plan for Planned Development Area number 78. The 2017 notice of project change specified a program of uses for each NPC block, while noting that given the multi-phase, mixed-use nature of the NPC, the uses of each block might change from the assumptions used in the 2017 NPC. The 2017 further contemplated a building program for Block N comprised of approximately 72,000 square feet of retail, entertainment, restaurant, and service uses, and 350,000 square feet of residential uses. On September 10, 2019, Seaport Square Development Company, LLC, filed a notice of project change proposing a revised building program on Block N of the Seaport Square project. As proposed, the 2019 NPC before you this evening contemplates the allowance of approximately 38,000 square feet of retail, entertainment, restaurant, service uses, and approximately 384,000 square feet of office and/or research and development uses on Block N. The proposed conversion of use creates an excess of 100,000 square feet of commercial space and thus allows for Block N to be considered as a development impact project. The BPDA hosted a joint impact advisory group and public meeting on September 23rd at the Society of Arts and Crafts to discuss the proposed project changes with the community and IAG members. In addition to the revised building program for Block N, the 2019 NPC also affirms that the building program of Blocks L3 and G of the Seaport Square project will be primarily residential uses. These residential uses on Blocks L3 and G will preserve the existing affordable housing commitments established in the 2017 NPC, allowing for the creation of approximately 152,720 square feet of affordable housing in the future development of Blocks L3 and G, which translates to approximately 166 IDP units. The location of the Seaport Performing Arts Center has also been affirmed for Block L5 of the Seaport Square project, which will be further supported by an additional $1 million contribution from the proponent, accounting for an $8.5 million total commitment from the proponent towards programming of the CPAC and/or other civic, educational, cultural uses or endeavors within the NPC blocks. I'd like to note for the board that a revision was made on page 7 of your board memo. In the memo before you, a 4th bullet point under the new public benefits commitments notes that the proponent will be making an additional $1 million contribution to the IDP fund. This has been removed from the board memo as the previously approved affordable housing within the Seaport Square project has been preserved, despite the proposed change of building program of Block N, and will be delivered as previously discussed in both total square footage and number of units on Blocks L3 and G. I'd like to introduce Yanni Sippis, Senior Vice President of the Seaport for WS Development, who will share additional specifics of the proposed notice of project change with the board. Both BPDA staff and the proponent will be happy to answer any questions the board may have at the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisling. Good evening, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Polimas. Good evening. My name is Yanni Sippis with WS Development, and as always, it's both a pleasure and a privilege to appear before this board. Thank you. The project before you this evening, and I think we have the slide set up. As Aisling mentioned, the project before you this evening is part of the Seaport Square development plan that's illustrated here on this slide. It's a 20-city block, 23-acre PDA development plan. And we thought before we turn our attention to the matter at hand, just because it's been several years since we've given an update to this board, that we would spend just a moment providing an update on the overall status of the Seaport Square project. We're about halfway either complete or under construction with the 7.5 million square foot build out of this project, and we'll give you a couple of specifics. The first is regarding Block M, all the way to the east, right adjacent to where Fidelity has its complex at the World Trade Center. This project, the echelon, is nearing completion, will be complete in the coming months, and will deliver almost 750 residential units into the Seaport neighborhood. We're very excited about this nearing completion. We're also well under construction with what we call 111 Harbor Way, which is Block L4 of the project. This is a building that's almost entirely leased to Amazon, who will be creating approximately 2,000 technology sector jobs on the site, as well as 2 levels of retail, restaurant, and entertainment uses. In addition to the buildings, we're under construction currently with Harbor Square Park. This is a new acre park that will be adjacent to 111 Harbor Way. It's a beautiful green space designed by James Corner Field Operations, the fellow who designed the High Line in New York. And this will be a terrific community amenity for the Seaport and for the city as a whole. Both this park and the adjacent building will be complete in the summer of 2021. And then we're also about to begin construction on Block P. This is number 400 Summer Street, sort of catty corner across from the Boston Convention Exhibition Center. This is a beautiful masonry, brick masonry building that's been fully leased by a company from Kendall Square called Foundation Medicine that's in the business of really revolutionizing the diagnosis and treatment of cancer worldwide. And so we're thrilled to welcome them to the Seaport and to the city of Boston as a whole. In addition to building buildings and parks, we've continued our commitment to and a tradition of providing public programming on the parks that we've already finished. We've already built several parks in the neighborhood. So last year, or this year alone, we've done over 500 free public events in the Seaport, from farmers markets and symphony orchestra concerts and ballet performances and a mobile agricultural goods truck. And then coming up, we'll have our 4th annual holiday tree lighting for the neighborhood, some interactive winter public art. We had a family-friendly event called Zoo and Brew a couple of weeks ago, and also a Christmas tree market. So we're trying to do a variety of different things, both vis-a-vis the built environment, but also in terms of public programming and activation. And then lastly, by way of update, we've also made some very significant investments in public art. And we've made a commitment to bring world-class public art to this new neighborhood. So these illustrated here are 3 of the 7 original sculptures that we commissioned from an artist named Ukuda San Miguel, placed prominently in Seaport Boulevard to help sort of spice up the character of the neighborhood and bring some really interesting public art to the area. So with that as just a brief update, we'll turn our attention to the matter at hand before you this evening. And that's Block N, 350 Summer Street, which is located right here on between Summer Street and Congress Street at the southwest corner of the overall development. Block N is located immediately adjacent to the historic Fort Point Channel Landmark District, which figured heavily in our decision in terms of the architect and our approach to the architecture. We decided to work with an architect named Morris Adjmi from New York, who's done a tremendous amount of work in landmark districts around the country and brings a real sensitivity around working within historic structures in historic districts. This is an image of a building he did in Lower Manhattan, which blends a beautiful historic, low-rise historic building with a very contemporary sort of neo-industrial component to it, which is something that really appealed to us. We sort of wanted to break away from the glass boxes that we see very often these days in terms of architecture. And so the inspiration, of course, he had to look no further than the adjacent Fort Point Channel Landmark District for his inspiration in terms of the building's vernacular. And then here's an image of the building itself. This is a building, it's a bit hard to see because of the lighting, but the building is comprised of brick masonry. It's a dark gray, sort of a charcoal color brick. It has archtop windows. It's a very contextual building that tries to be very respectful of its place on both Summer Street and Congress Street, immediately adjacent to the historic Fort Point Channel district. So this is a view from Summer Street looking back towards South Station. This is a view from Congress Street. The Row 34 restaurant is on the right-hand side, right here. And one of the things we tried very hard to do was to carry the sort of pedestrian scale and pedestrian feel of Fort Point east to actually both of these buildings, both 350 Summer, which is the one closest, and 400 Summer, which is the one in the background, such that the new Seaport Square development could kind of feel like a seamless extension of Fort Point, as opposed to having a bunch of new buildings smacking you in the face as soon as you broke out of the historic district. We tried very hard to have continuity. This is an image back up on Summer Street now, looking again west towards South Station. 350 Summer is shown right here. And in the building in the foreground is 400 Summer, also by Morris Adjmi. This is sort of the view that you will have in the future as you come out of the convention center and look west towards the city. Right now, all you see is a central outer event building and then nothing, because Summer Street is 24 feet up in the air. This is another view from the Summer Street Bridge, now looking east towards the convention center. This is the central outer event building. This is 400 Summer, which will shortly be under construction. And again, it's a bit hard to see, but we'll be constructing in between these two buildings a grand stair, a major public gesture connecting Summer Street, which is up on a bridge, to Congress Street down at sort of Seaport grade. Here's an image of the grand stair from Congress Street, just showing some of the beautiful landscaping that'll be associated with it, and the strength of this pedestrian connection between Congress Street and Summer Street, basically across from the convention center. This is a connection that only exists today with the 8th Street stair, which is this rickety little iron stair that is quite hazardous. So we're very happy to make this public gesture. And we envision that the stairs themselves are not only a means of circulation to get people up and down, but also a place unto themselves that'll have a lot of public seating, public musical performances, cafes, and so forth. So a real destination in addition to just a manner of circulation. So with that as background on the project itself, as Aisling mentioned, in addition to the new jobs and taxes and other public benefits, there are a couple of specific public benefits we wanted to highlight associated with the project. The increase in the funding for the Performing Arts Center that we'll be building on Block L5 to $8.5 million. We've also committed to accelerating that payment, and we've also committed to approximately $3 million a payment for affordable housing in association specifically with this block as well. And with that, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, that concludes our presentation. We'd like to thank you for your attention. We'd like to thank Aisling for facilitating a terrific community process, and we'd be very happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as this is a public hearing, we're going to hold off on the board questions and start with the audience. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the proposed project? Please come to the podium.
Hi there, my name is Dodge Tucker. I have worked in the Seaport for 3 years, and I am a resident of South Boston. In my short time in the Seaport, it's been very cool to kind of see a city within a city grow and be built. I think it'll be excellent to add another new building into the area, adding more office and an opportunity for the flourishing life science industry to kind of make its way down to the Seaport, as we see zero vacancy in Kendall to do so. Also, to kind of go along with that, the Seaport and all of the extra community kind of steps that they've taken, it like really makes it a very friendly place to be. There are people out and about willing to help you. There are events. There are activations. I am in full support of this project, as it is a continuation of the already successful Seaport project as we know it today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Good evening. My name is Kim Wilson, and I am an owner of Cardulo's Gourmet Shop. So those of you might know us from Harvard Square, but we have been in the Seaport now almost a year and a half, and we are honored and thrilled to be there. What's been most exciting to us as small business owners is the vitality and the vibrance of the Seaport community. And it has multiple facets to me as a small business owner. I've sort of walked you through a little bit of during the day. In the day, it's a plethora of construction workers and people who work in the Seaport who come down to Cardullo's for lunch and snacks and things like that. And then it really, really transforms in the afternoon to really being, in the afternoon, evening, and the weekends, to a neighborhood. And we love being part of that. You know, we've already talked about all of the events and things like that that are there, and they've all come to life and they continue to grow with each and every one. Now we're anniversarying those events with WS, whether it's the tree lighting and the winter art and all of those things, and the more and more pedestrians and the residents who come there has made the business at Cardullo's continue to grow month after month. So my husband and I are in full support of this project. We think it's a nice addition and continues to add on to the flavor of the Seaport, and we hope you'll support it as well.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Clancy. I'm a 10-year resident of Boston and a 5-year, work resident of the Seaport. I walk by here on a regular basis, always thinking to myself, this is a pretty windswept area. I think this does a nice job of bridging the gap between Congress and Summer Street. The stairs are going to be a nice thing because right now, as they were saying, the stairs up to 8th Street are very difficult, can get icy in the winter, et cetera. I think the building is contextual. It kind of bridges the gap nicely between Fort Point and these newer buildings in the Seaport, so it sort of bridges that gap in a tasteful way. And like others have said, WS has done a beautiful job with programming development, and I, would be excited to see what they could do in a similar fashion going forward. So I'm in support of this.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Wheaton. I've lived in the Seaport area for about 9 years. In the 9 years, it's been so wonderful to see the changes that have become in the area. I recently have a 2-year-old puppy, and I, as everyone knows, use it at 6 in the morning and at midnight. And so being somebody who's lived down there, to see the changes and to actually have some people that are neighbors has really impacted the area. I think that this would be a wonderful and welcomed part of the community. I love the idea of the different steps going up. I feel that once I get to row 34, it ends, and I think that this will really bridge the gap and bring more community into what we have right now. I'm in full support of this. I also love the brick because there's so many glass buildings down there. I don't always need to see my reflection, which is just fine. So a little bit brick is really nice. And I also would like to give a huge shout out to WS with the public art. I think art's a very important thing, and it's very important to me. My dog's name is Graffiti, so it's very nice to see the art that has been brought in there. But I am in favor of this and appreciate your time tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, is there anyone who else would like to speak in favor of the project? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the proposed project? Please come to the podium. Okay, hearing none. So at this time, I'd like to ask if the board members have any questions.
I have a question. Can you talk more explicitly about the housing units that are not going to be in this building and how many exactly and where they're going to be relocated to?
Sure. And maybe what I could do if you would allow is put the map back up. One of the great things about this project is that, it's comprised of 20 city blocks. So it was always sort of planned that the pieces could move around over time because, of course, this, wouldn't happen overnight. So the homes that were going to be located on Block N will be redistributed, same number, to blocks L3, located right here, and G, located right here, so that there would be no net loss of the number of homes created, and that applies both to the market rate and to the affordable homes as well.
And how many is that exactly? Do you know?
Approximately 350.
Okay. And what is the timing of those 2 buildings that are going to have the housing in them?
Based on the pace of development that's happened over the past, really, we opened the first building here in 2015, and 7 buildings have opened since then. So if we, said that it's within the next 3 to 5 years, that certainly would be defensible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, all. Thank you.
Okay, So we're going to jump back to item number 26. Request authorization to enter into an amended and restated land disposition agreement, amending the two-story commercial space to a three-story residential dwelling for parcel R-93 located at 241 Bunker Hill Street, and to issue a certificate of completion to 241 Bunker Hill Street Trust. Christopher.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. Before you, as stated, is a recommendation for approval authorizing the director to enter into an amended and restated land disposition agreement with actually Joan Sheen, who is formerly of 241 Bunker Hill Street Trust, and issue a certificate of completion for the property with her, the trustee, the former trustee. Essentially, this is just a cleanup of an out-of-compliance LDA to allow for a potential sale. The original LDA called for a two-story building with commercial on the first floor and residences above. The original LDA had a certificate of completion vote, but that is unrecorded. In the mid-1980s, 241 Bunker Hill Street fell out of compliance with that LDA by adding a third story and eliminating the commercial space. The amended and restated LDA proposed would bring parcel R93 back into compliance by allowing for a three-story residential single-family that is currently present. BPDA staff toured the site and it is consistent with that potential amended LDA. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay.
I have a question about the overall LDA review project. I know we were supposed to go through all of our old LDAs and review them and make sure they're all correct. How are we doing on that project?
Oh, quite excellent. I would venture to say we're 100% done. We're always double checking and stuff like that, finding things here and there, but I haven't come across any errors recently, and it's actually working wonderfully. It's helped me a lot, and I'd say it's completely done, and it's looking good.
So is this something that was just found because someone wants to do something to the property? That's why.
Yeah, so they did this in the 80s, and now someone wants to sell it, and we kind of caught it then.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. 27, request authorization to enter into a First Amendment to the amended and restated land disposition agreement for parcel R-74 located at 14 Lawnwood Place, and to issue a certificate of completion to David J. McDermott for the single-family house. Christopher.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. Before you is a recommendation for the approval authorizing the director for an issuance of a certificate of completion for parcel R-74 at 14 Longwood Street in Charlestown. That certificate of completion is pursuant to the First Amendment to the LDA that's already occurred. So they're not entering into a new amendment, but they're just seeking a certificate of completion. BPDA staff toured the interior and outdoor spaces of the new single-family townhouse and found the buildings to be constructed according to the BPDA approved plans, and thus have written a memo recommending the issuance of the certificate of completion. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, 28. Request authorization to issue a certificate of completion to Thomas M. and Donna M. Hickey for parcel R-8B located at 26 North Mead Street for the owner-occupied residential house. Christopher.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. As stated, before you is a recommendation for approval authorizing the director for an issuance of a certificate of completion for parcel R8 at 26 North Mead Street in Charlestown. BPDA staff did tour the interior and the outdoor spaces of the owner-occupied townhouse and found the buildings to be constructed according to the land disposition agreement, and thus have written a memo recommending the issuance of a certificate of completion. Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to number 30. Request authorization to expend $227,000 $845 to 4 Alston Brighton Community Organization from the Boston College Neighborhood Improvements Fund, and to enter into grant agreements with said nonprofits. Gerald.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Secretary Polimas, Director Golden. As you know, we run almost every year a grant cycle with the Boston College Neighborhood Improvement Fund. There was one that the task force made recommendations on last winter. An earlier round of funding was approved to some of those projects in the spring. Several others were held up, and what's before you is our board approval to get those moving. So at this point, all of the projects from that grant cycle have now been approved by the task force, by Boston College, and by us. That's it, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
And personnel update, Heather.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We have one appointment for your consideration, Elizabeth Torres, Housing Policy Assistant in the Director's Office, with a start date of November 18th. One department reorganization with 3 status changes for your consideration, Eileen Brophy, Deputy General Counsel, Lisa Richardson, Associate General Counsel, Sean Nehill, Associate General Counsel, all in the Office of the General Counsel. And lastly, we have one out-of-state travel item for your consideration, Michael Christopher, Deputy Director of Development Review from the Development Review Department.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I need a motion to pay the bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. And Director's update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the members. I want to point out an important milestone that occurred this week. We marked the 1-year anniversary of Plan Mattapan. It was celebrated at the KIPP Public Charter School, the KIPP Academy in Mattapan, yesterday. This 1-year anniversary of Plan Mattapan built on more than 105 community engagement events, including over 65 neighborhood association meetings. And one of our workshops included a conversation conducted on the subject of Plan Mattapan entirely in Haitian Creole. The BPDA's planning staff has organized and facilitated and participated in all of these meetings that have been held since the planning studies launched last fall. The Plan Mattapan is guided by Imagine Boston 2030, our umbrella, the first citywide plan in over 50 years. Plan Mattapan's goal as a subcomponent. Plan Mattapan's goal is to create a comprehensive vision to shape inclusive growth and investment throughout the neighborhood. At the core of the plan and all of the planning studies underway across the city, there's about 16 of them underway right now. Community engagement is central to all of those efforts, and we are especially grateful to the hundreds of residents of Mattapan who've participated in Plan Mattapan with us over the past 12 months. And not only when it comes to Plan Mattapan, but I just want to encourage everyone in our neighborhoods to participate in the other planning initiatives that are occurring throughout the city, in Glover's Corner, in East Boston, downtown, in the Newmarket area, the Western Avenue corridor in Alston, Brighton, and in Charlestown. I also want to just call attention again to one of the developments that you approved tonight, 3,368 Washington Street and Jamaica Plain. It's a joint endeavor with Pine Street Inn and the community builders, both of whom are really high-quality, mission-oriented developers of affordable housing and supportive services. This really is one of the nicest projects I think we've approved this year. It's 140 units for extremely low-income, formerly homeless Bostonians. and an additional 62 low to moderate income units. And again, it helps us advance the very important goals of Plan JP Rocks in ensuring that the very positive development climate that we're experiencing benefits people all along the socioeconomic spectrum in Boston, and especially very vulnerable populations such as these. So this is a really tremendous success story. I think those who participated in the neighborhood to think about the project with us and with the developers. This remains the biggest building boom in the history of the city, and we're very pleased that it continues to benefit people all along the socioeconomic spectrum. Just to put a fine point on it, this is going to provide 140 units to people who were formerly homeless. Right now, the city estimates that about between 120, 130 people live on the city streets at night. Those are homeless who are not in shelters, not in motels, and not anywhere but the outdoors at night, especially in weather such as we're experiencing now, abnormal cold in early November. But it just reminds you how important and precious each one of these units is. 140 new units for 140 formerly homeless people. That's about the population that's living on the street right now. So every time we can produce more of these units, it's a great victory for the individuals who live in them, for the rest of us who share in the well-being of them in the city. So I just wanted to celebrate the work of staff, the developers in the neighborhoods at 3368. So
I agree.
thank you. With that, have a pleasant evening. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting? Yes, you do.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Oh, are we done?
Okay. I move we adjourn this meeting. Second. All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Guys, ayes have it, motion passes. I'm not good at openings and closings. Like,
Yeah, we did.
we did pay the bills.
We did. It happened.
I
We
speak
did.
really fast.